Every person who pitied this man was statistically more likely to have a worse brain than he does. The lonely guy, the Slayer shirt, the house nobody visits. Society filed him under warning. 3 separate studies filed him under outlier who got it right. Same generation, same poison in the blood, but while everyone else aged into a screen, he aged into something the research community quietly calls protective. Nobody told him he was running the experiment. He just turned the volume up and let it work. So let's talk about Dave. Dave is 53. He lives alone in a house that smells faintly of coffee and old amplifier dust. There's a milk crate of vinyl by the window, alphabetized, but only he knows the system. The neighbors think he's a bit of a ghost. The data thinks he's something else entirely. Because here's the part nobody put on a motivational poster. Dave's brain might be in better shape than the brains of the people who felt sorry for him. Not as nostalgia, not as a compliment, as a measurement. Let me show you the gap. In 1923, somebody had a bright idea. Engines were knocking, so they dumped lead into gasoline to make them run smooth. Smart for the engine, catastrophic for the kid riding in the back seat with the window down. Fast forward. In 2022, 3 researchers, Michael McFarland and Matt Hauer at Florida State and Aaron Rubin at Duke, published a study in PNAS that should have changed dinner conversations forever. It didn't. Most people scrolled past it. Their finding? Childhood exposure to leaded gas erased an estimated 824 million IQ points across more than 170 million living Americans. Half the country walking around a little dimmer and nobody told them. Now here's where it gets personal for Dave. The damage wasn't spread evenly. Hauer said it flat out. Generation X got hit with the highest lead exposure of any cohort, the peak. Kids born between 1966 and 1970, about 20.8 million of them, lost an average of 5.9 IQ points each. The heaviest doses lost more than 7. So wait, if Gen X got poisoned the worst, how is this a story about Dave winning? Stay with me, because the lead is the setup, not the punchline. The popular story about heavy metal goes like this: loud music, angry kid, broken adult. The 1980s built an entire moral panic on it. Senate hearings, parental warning stickers, preachers snapping cassette tapes in half on local news. Then somebody actually tested it. 2015, University of Queensland, Leah Sharman and Genevieve Dingle take 39 extreme music listeners, make them angry on purpose, and then split them in 2. Half sit in silence, half put on their own metal playlist. The expectation was obvious. Metal plus anger equals more anger. That's what your aunt believed in 1987. The result flipped it. The metal listeners didn't get angrier. Their hostility dropped just as fast as the silent groups. But the music group also reported feeling more active, more inspired. The aggressive sound didn't pour gasoline on the rage. It matched it, held it, and walked it back down. Read that again. While the rest of the culture was learning to swallow feelings and call it maturity, Dave was running a private emotional regulation protocol 4 nights a week. He just called it putting on a record. Why living alone is the cheat code, not the tragedy. Here's the part that breaks people's assumptions. We treat living alone like a symptom, a red flag, a thing to fix with a dating app and a brunch invitation. But think about what Dave's environment actually is. No notifications optimized to hijack his attention. No open plan office hum. No algorithm feeding him a new outrage every 9 seconds to keep his cortisol simmering. His house is quiet on his terms. The modern attention economy is essentially a machine built to fragment focus and sell the wreckage. Dave opted out. Not philosophically, just by being the kind of guy who'd rather restring a guitar than refresh a feed. And solitude, the actual chosen kind, isn't isolation. Researchers separate the two. One is a wound, the other is a workshop. Dave isn't lonely, he's undistracted. He spends 2 hours figuring out why one channel of his stereo went quiet. Most people would throw it out and order a new one before the second commercial break. He fixes it. That's not stubbornness. That's a brain that still finishes things. Now, stack it. The lead damaged the whole generation's baseline. Fair. But cognitive decline later in life isn't just about where you started, it's about what you keep doing. Use it or lose it isn't a slogan, it's the most reliable finding in aging research. So, picture two Gen X men, both poisoned equally as kids. Man number one retired into a recliner and 12 hours of cable a day. Passive, frictionless. His brain coasts. Man number two, Dave, maintains a physical music collection that demands organization, processes his emotions through sound instead of suppressing them, repairs his own things, lives in deliberate quiet, reads liner notes like scripture. Every single one of those habits is a small, repeated demand on the brain. Same starting damage, wildly different trajectory. The lead set the floor, the lifestyle set the slope, and Dave's slope quietly points up while everyone else's points at a screen. And here's the cruel little twist most people miss. Lead doesn't just sit there. Rubin's whole next line of research is about how childhood lead exposure shows up decades later as accelerated brain aging. The damage isn't a one-time tax, it's a subscription that keeps charging into old age. So the recliner guy isn't holding steady, he's compounding the wrong way. Old damage plus zero new demand. Dave is compounding the other direction. Every re-alphabetized record, every soldered stereo connection, every album he sits with instead of scrolling past is a tiny deposit into a brain that was overdrawn at birth. Two men, identical starting debt. One keeps paying interest, the other started quietly paying it down 40 years ago and never noticed he was doing it. The metal wasn't rebellion, it was, accidentally, a savings plan. So let's go back to the start. The ghost in the Slayer shirt. The culture looked at him and saw a guy who never grew out of it. The data looks at him and sees a man who, almost by accident, assembled a near-perfect regimen for protecting an aging brain. Active emotional processing, deep, undistracted focus, manual problem-solving, chosen solitude over noisy connection. He didn't read a single study. He just kept being himself while the rest of the world got louder, faster, and more medicated. And that's the part that should sting a little, because the things we sold as maturity, the open office, the always-on phone, the calendar with no white space, the noise we mistake for connection, those are the exact conditions Dave's lifestyle filters out. We didn't grow up, we got optimized for distraction and called it being well-adjusted. He looked unwell by comparison, too quiet, too alone, too stuck on bands that broke up before some of his co-workers were born. But the moral panic of 1987 had it backwards. The kid they'd tried to save with warning stickers was already building the one defense that actually mattered. Not money, not status, a brain that still knows how to sit with one thing, in silence, on purpose, until it's done. The rest of us are trying to buy that back now with apps and supplements. They've got it for the price of a record and a working pair of speakers. The peak everyone teased him about? It was never the music. The music was the side effect. The peak was the way of living the music quietly trained him into. So the next time you see him, the quiet one, alone, band shirt older than your car, don't feel sorry for him. He's not behind. He's not stuck in 1989. He's the long game, and he's winning it in the dark with the volume up exactly the way he always told you he would.